Well, thank you everyone for joining. I will tell you that I could not be more excited about today's conversation. So thank you for joining me today with Deborah Wheatman. She is the founder and president of Careers Done Right, a marketing and personal branding company. And Deborah is with us today to discuss executing your career pivot. Change is inevitable, but stress is optional. And I'm Linda Fisk, the CEO of Leadership Global, and I am absolutely thrilled to welcome each and every one of you to the program today. Leadership Global is the most impactful community of extraordinary women in the world. We unleash the full potential of high-performing and growth-oriented leaders in a confidential, supportive, and private community. Leadership Global helps members accelerate their success by defining their vision, growing their leadership, expanding their influence, and leaving a lasting legacy. So if you're interested in learning more about this remarkable community of women leading across business, entertainment, and politics, please reach out. It would be my pleasure to be able to connect with each and every one of you. So thank you. All right, so let's dive into today's topic. Let me ask you, do you feel disengaged in your day-to-day work? Do you lack the energy and enthusiasm to get your work done? Or perhaps you even dread waking up to go to your job in the morning. If you're staying on your career path simply because of the pay or the power or maybe the title that it offers, I gotta tell you, it may be time for a career pivot. A career pivot is simply doubling down on what is working in order to make a purposeful shift to a new and related direction. Pivoting is an intentional, methodological process for nimbly navigating your career changes. As you start to plan a pivot of your own, keep in mind the word intentional. A pivot should make you feel maybe a little uncomfortable, but you should always feel a sense of confidence in what you're doing. Take one small, deliberate, and brave step towards your goal every single day, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's terrifying. Today, you'll learn how to determine if a career pivot is right for you and how to make an action plan that works. Making a career pivot requires thoughtful planning and guidance. So that's why we're so lucky to have with us Deb Wheatman. She will cover actionable strategies that will provide thoughtful information as you consider and execute a change to make the necessary advancement in both your life and your job. Learn the key strategies successfully change careers. Now, before we jump in, let me tell you just a little bit about Deb Wheatman. First, I am proud to say that she is a Leadership Global coach. So she is a member and a coach with Leadership Global. And she's also the founder and president of Careers Done Right, a marketing and personal branding company providing comprehensive services to job seekers and to professionals who are proactive about managing their professional development and their career planning efforts. With her background in corporate human resources with well-respected financial services firms, advertising agencies, media and entertainment firms, Deb guides clients to establish and reach goals that are aligned with their professional needs and their whole life aspirations. Deb works in career management, leadership strategy, interpersonal engagement, change management, and performance in post-M&A environments. She is absolutely passionate about working with her clients as they pursue gratifying career choices. So again, let me welcome Deb Wheatman to the show. Thank you so much, Deb, for being here with us.
Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to present on this topic today. So I am going to share my screen because I did create a presentation. Can you all see that? Hopefully.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So without further ado, I will get started, and I'm going to be talking about making a successful career transition, which, as we all know, working in any sort of aspect of our life, it requires you in a lot of ways to be nimble, to be able to change and pivot, whether or not you're actually going to be moving into something new or staying in the same type of company or at the same company, and just moving through that company to grow and develop. So the best time, as we all know, to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And how does that relate to your career and to your transition? Well, that really is illustrative of making a transition. If you are still around, if you're still working, if you're still breathing, if you're still contributing, maybe it's time for a change. People go through different things in their lives, whether they're professionally, personally, things happen, things change that make you consider other avenues, other venues, other ways to contribute. And I think we probably have all learned now, especially the past 2 years, the pandemic, if it has taught us nothing, it has taught us, and I've heard this from myriad clients, that they want to change. They want to do something different. They're not going to be so concerned with, either the money or the whatever else they've been doing, because they realize life is too short. A lot of things have transpired. People, loved ones, friends, family, all of these people have been affected by the pandemic and the repercussions and the outcome of that. And many people have just decided now is the time. I'm ready to move ahead. I'm ready to do it with purpose, and I'm going to make a change. With that being said, it's funny when you say unpaid, it sounds like it's also unpaid. And while a transition or a pivot doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to be unpaid, you do have to take some things into consideration. And some of those things include that you're likely, depending upon what type of transition you are making or are planning on making, you have to come to some realizations that the title might not be the same. The pay might not be the same. It probably won't be the same, depending upon what it is that you're going to do. And thinking about it carefully and really taking a holistic approach about what the change is and what you're trying to do, make sure you do that for yourself. It really, really is important. Think about what are the things you want to consider about the change, and really dig deep to understand why are you looking to make a change? What are the things that are driving it? So some things that you need to consider when making a change, not that you don't want to do it. And I will tell you, I like stories. So I'm going to stop and tell you a story before I talk about the things that you should consider. I have a client. He is a pharmacist. So he works as a hospital pharmacist. And he wanted to make a major career pivot. Now, just a couple of things about him that sort of need to be said before I tell you about the pivot. So he's married and has a daughter, and he's making well into the six figures. So he has a good salary. He is the sole provider of his family. His wife is a stay-at-home mother, also the hardest job there is, and he brings in the bread. He wanted to make a career pivot to work in literacy to help underprivileged, underserved communities. Now, personally, I can really think of very few things that are more inspirational or just really something that makes you feel good and really adds value to society, right? But the role of moving into that is very low paying. It wasn't going to be the type of position that was going to allow him to sustain his living environment, his home. His wife would have to go get a job, which I don't think would have been a problem for her. She was fine with that. But it was also then needing care for their daughter, which also costs money. So in this particular situation, while I thought his aspiration and him wanting to turn his avocation into his vocation was a wonderful and noble thing. It was amazing that he wanted to do this. But, and here's the big but, was it going to be feasible? It wasn't going to allow them to pay their bills, which brings me to my point about finances. Can you afford to take the kind of pay cut And this is kind of extreme. I think a lot of transitions, not all of them, they're all different, right? But some require more of a commitment and more of a life change than others. In his, it was going to really require a significant life change. Could he afford to take that kind of financial hit and move into that realm and still be able to support his family? I knew he was passionate about it. We talked about it extensively. He wanted to do this. He felt really committed to that purpose. And doing his research, he knew he had the expectations. He knew what the requirement was. What we found out, though, just after our discussions and his ongoing research, was that making a pivot into that from a career perspective was probably not going to work for him because of the finances, because of the way that his whole life would likely be upended by moving into an area where he would take more than a 50% pay cut. So what we decided to do instead was have him work on his avocation outside. So he was going to then maintain his role as a pharmacist. That way he can still provide for his family, but take on some volunteer roles. Look to join the board of an organization that focused on literacy. And that is what he did. He is now currently volunteering and moving toward participating on a board where he can really make an impact for organizations that are focused on driving literacy globally. And I loved his passion about literacy and serving underserved populations. And he found a way to do that without compromising the needs of his family. So some statistics on transitions, and people make transitions all the time. I know people who've gone from working in corporate environments to teaching, from teaching to going into the private sector, people going into the government sector. So people make transitions all of the time. It does take time, however, and it takes a concerted effort, but it absolutely can be done. The average person will change jobs 5 to 7 times during their work life. It is not uncommon. And studies, which probably you've all seen from research you've done by yourselves or things that you've read in a number of periodicals, frustration is the biggest cause, the number one cause of people leaving their jobs and wanting to leave. They get frustrated by the bureaucracy in some cases. They get frustrated by how things are running internally. They are frustrated by their bad managers and other things that impact how they feel about the workplace and their desire to go to a place every day, whether that be in person or now via Zoom or like virtually, whatever it is. So these are the reasons why people leave. Only 21% of adults feel they're paid what they deserve. And 70% of the workforce, they are looking for a career change. They're looking to be more inspired. They're looking to do things where they feel more of a connection, professionally, personally, areas where they can make a meaningful and lasting impact. Some things to do, think carefully about all of the factors. It is not a good idea on the don't side to rage quit your job. Don't just pick up one day and decide, I'm out of here, I'm done, I can't take it anymore. That might be the case, and you might feel that way, but wait until you come down a little bit off of an emotional high, whether that's, serious anger or something else that's driving that decision. You really need to think about a career change very carefully, a pivot, and it needs to be something that you give careful consideration to. One of the things that I talk about extensively is doing research. Excuse me, need a drink. So research is critical to making a pivot. I often say your research will set you free. 99% of decisions, if you do the research, you will do a smart thing for yourself. You will establish and understand the strategy that is driving your decision. Don't assume anything. I could give you a million stories of people who have just said, well, it should be okay. You cannot operate that way, not in your career and not in your life. That's how mistakes are made. And you know what? It's fine to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time, frankly. but the research is the way to arm yourself with information, make connections, speak to people, network, get informational interviews, really dig deep to get the information. Your research will allow you the opportunity and a view. It'll give you the view into what potentially will be. Without the research, the mistakes you make could be things that will have a greater and longer lasting impact than maybe you would have hoped or liked. I had recently a woman came to me, and this is afterwards. She had already made this change. She accepted an offer from a company. It was a little bit of a career transition. It was a step up, new role, very exciting. She got there only to find out that the place was in complete disarray. It was very chaotic. There were no clear lines of reporting. There were a lot of issues internally. They wanted her to sell her house and relocate. She'd already left a job and she did not do the research. So unfortunately, there was like sort of like the tipping point. She was going to have to leave because they were pushing her to sell her house and relocate. And so that was the rub. She couldn't really stay unless she was selling her house. She couldn't stay with the company because they were going to sort of see. That was a very big error on her part. And part of the reason why that error occurred was because she failed to do her research about the management, about the overall company, about what was going on that surrounded that company in the industry. So don't make the mistake of not doing research. And research is at the tip of your fingers. It's on the Google, and it's also around you via your network and the people that you speak with and get to know. LinkedIn is a tool. I know we're all on LinkedIn, and I'm sure many of you use it extensively. I had someone yesterday tell me that he's not using LinkedIn any longer. He felt like he didn't need it, which is a much longer conversation. But I did find that very interesting, that he felt that LinkedIn was not important for him. He was extremely well connected, which is wonderful for him. But I had to disagree with him. I think LinkedIn is an important thing and should be used not only for job search, but also for research. And pivots and transitions and expanding and building and growing, maintaining, managing a robust and positive network. A simple search on LinkedIn will do wonders for you. It's amazing what you can learn. You can send notes to people, connect with them. And I do recommend that if you're going to use LinkedIn for research and you're going to reach out to people, whether you know them or you're making an introduction, send a note. Don't send the random, blanket note. Write something that personalizes it a bit so that you can start a meaningful conversation. And I don't know how many of you use this feature, but I know that I really like it. On LinkedIn, not on the computer though, I have an iPhone. So I'm not sure if you can do it on Android. I imagine that you can. I have an iPhone, and on your phone, you can actually record a video message, and someone in leadership, thank you, she's not on unfortunately, but she taught me this, and it is amazing. You can record a video message to someone and send it to them through LinkedIn. Why do I love this? I love it because it creates a connection to someone that you want to network with or someone that you know. She did it with me, as our first introduction. We have since become friends. I introduced her to leadership. She's now a member, which is awesome. And this video thing, I love it, and it is great. And it may be, for some people, maybe it'll take you a little while to get used to speaking into your phone because maybe you feel like it's a little weird. You're not really speaking to anyone and you're talking to the camera. But I can assure you, practice makes perfect, as it does for pretty much everything. And if you practice and you send out video messages, I guarantee you will get more of a response from not only the people that you know that are in your network, but also people that you don't know. And I have started doing this, and I will be honest, my response rate has increased. How does this relate to a transition? Well, you want to meet people who potentially can advise you, help you, refer you. This is a good way to create that connection. Also Also, if you have a company in mind, get connected. Do the research on the company. Look at the people. Find people that you want to connect with that are in those companies. If you join groups, you will also see there's a lot of conversations happening in these groups, and you can engage and network online, stay abreast of what's going on in a particular company, and make your presence known, add value by asking questions, responding to other people's questions. And this entire pattern will support you in your transition efforts. I also believe in really keeping very good notes and keeping things organized. So let's say you're planning on making a transition and you have a target of a type of position or a type of company or something that you're focused on doing. Keep a list. What are the companies operating in that space that will allow you to do the research to figure out what the, not only risks, but also what's going on in that space so you can add value. Further research might support your efforts to share that information with other people with whom you want to build a relationship. And doing that demonstrates that you're able to give something to someone instead of just asking for them to do something for you. So, Linda, I found this wonderful article about this particular company operating in this particular space. I think you might find it interesting for your business. People will appreciate that. They'll appreciate the fact that you're giving them something rather than specifically asking for something only without giving back. Joining groups, which I just talked about, check the title of the group, look at the posts that they're making, see how many members there are. Are the posts high quality? Is there an opportunity for you to contribute? There are over 2 million groups on LinkedIn. I guarantee that you can probably find one or more that will be suitable for you and that will allow you not only to contribute, but also to get information that will allow you to make a career pivot should you wish to do that. In addition, the benefits of active networking during a transition provide you with a lot of learning. And again, going back to, I can't stress enough the importance of research. I know I've said it a million times and I talk about it all the time, because that's the stuff that will allow you to make an educated decision, not just something that is like you've decided to do it and you're throwing caution to the wind. This is not the time to do that. You want to make sure that your decisions are smart decisions for you. They're smart decisions for your family. So your research and the things that you learn about from other people, from joining groups, from reading things, will allow you to do that successfully. 50 to 80% of jobs are filled through networking. Why is that? Well, it's because nobody is going to refer someone that they don't support. It's a reflection. If I refer someone and they turn out to be not what they present themselves as, that's a reflection back on me. So people are going to refer people that they support and fully endorse and feel would make a good contribution in an organization. As far as a pivot or a transition, networking is a great way to get in, and getting an endorsement from a friend, a colleague, or someone with whom you've previously networked is a great way to make an entree into a new organization. There is no expectation of loyalty anymore, and I'm sure you've heard this quote, "The battlefield is littered with the bodies of the indispensable." Nobody is indispensable. Everybody is replaceable. And what does that mean? Well, that means that people don't stay at jobs for the duration of their career anymore. So my grandfather, he worked for the same company his entire career until he retired. People don't do that anymore. Nowadays, the average tenure really is about 3.2, 3.5 years. People stay in a role and then they move on. What is the reason for that? Well, there's a couple of reasons, not the least of which is if you stay somewhere, 10, 15, 20 years, and then you try to leave or you want to make a pivot to something else, it calls into question whether in fact you are receptive to change, because you've been in the same organization. You haven't taken the steps to move beyond the walls where you currently work. So people think, Is this person open to change? Are they receptive to change? Are they going to be able to fit in a new environment after they've been in one place for so long? You know what? People get complacent. They get comfortable. They like what they're doing. But change, it's important. It helps you grow. It helps you develop. The butterflies you get feeling about moving into a new company, a new area, those things are good things. They might not feel that good at the time, but it is a way for you to expand yourself, spread your wings, learn new things, and get new sets of knowledge that will allow you to further develop and grow as a person and as a professional. So if you want to share your story, there's a couple of things that you need to do in addition to having a resume. You want to have a good, strong cover letter. Why? Because if you have background in something and you're now looking to make a pivot, how are you going to tell your story? This is an opportunity for you to write about the transition, what's prompting you to make the transition, and of course, and importantly, the skills, the background, the competencies that will allow you to not only do that seamlessly, but also successfully, and provide a window into things that support that transition. And I will, of course, share a story. So when I was working in publishing, magazine publishing, I was working in the human resource department. And I got a letter one day, because I always read the letters, the cover letters. I read them all the time. I got a letter from a woman who worked in manufacturing. So I'll tell you where I worked. I worked for Martha Stewart. So I did a lot of hiring for very creative positions, for people in test kitchens, the people who wanted to make recipes, people who did crafting, a very creative environment. This woman wrote in, she worked in manufacturing her entire career. And her cover letter told me the story of how she grew up in a household where her mother and her grandmother, and she, of course, were cooking. They would make their own pasta. They would make their own sauces. They created their own recipes, all within their household environment. And it went on to tell the story and really, personally of that experience, not just the great recipes and the things that they made as a family, but also how that made her feel and how it was received with her family. Well, as a result of her letter, not her resume, as I said, she worked in manufacturing. As a result of her letter, I passed her on to the test kitchen, the best hire they ever made. And it was because of her letter that she got that job. Her resume didn't support a job in the test kitchen, making cakes and developing recipes. It couldn't, because she was in manufacturing. So her vocation originally was manufacturing. Her avocation was cooking, recipe development. I passed her on, they hired her, and it was awesome for everyone. So that's why having a strong letter to support your efforts is important. And then, of course, and I do say this all the time, applying for a position, whether it is something that you're doing in transition or otherwise, without a cover letter is like leaving your house with a jacket and no pants. It is just not done. Those things, they come together. You would never do that unless you were looking for, I don't know, some sort of unwarranted attention, or perhaps you wanted to be arrested. Otherwise, you should absolutely make sure you put together a very strong, solid cover letter that demonstrates your expertise. And I would further add, it is also an indication of your ability to write. My public service announcement on that is now concluded. So, and while we're talking, let me offer you some free advice from Hamilton. So start with an introduction, outline your performance in your previous jobs if it's related, include the skills that are transferable. Incorporate your research, as I've said numerous times now. That is seriously important. And explain your reasons for wanting to make a transition. And you know what? Personal reasons are absolutely fine. Something that you're passionate about, why you want to do it. Don't be afraid to talk about your personal convictions, things that drive you as a reason to make a transition. And also, that passion will come through in your letter, and it will come through in your communications. And when it does, it gives people something to grab onto. Just having a letter or something that is sort of boilerplate is not going to work for you. You need to let your personality come through in these things. Let your brand come through. Let your thought leadership come through. That will also help you make a positive transition that will sustain you into the future. So, reasons to send a cover letter. Here they are. Tell your story, allow you to demonstrate your achievements. It provides a personalized look into your history. And of course, it puts you ahead of other people that don't send a cover letter. And I will tell you, there's lots of those people out there. Because why? Well, if I'm being completely honest, it's a pain to write a cover letter. It's painful for people. They struggle getting the words on paper. They don't know how to start the letter. They're not sure what to say. But I will tell you, take notes for yourself. Once you get started, it will flow much easier for you. Reasons not to send a cover letter. Well, there are none. There's absolutely no reason not to send one. Okay, maybe there's one reason. And that one reason is, I know Linda, and she says to me, I'm hiring for this position. Give me your resume. Then, of course, I'm going to give it to her. If I give her a cover letter, that's a little weird. She already knows me. She knows I'm qualified. If she's the one doing the hiring, clearly Linda doesn't need a cover letter from me. She doesn't need me to introduce myself. She already knows who I am. So that would be the only reason. Here are some tools that you might want to use as part of your research strategy. Glassdoor, Indeed, PayScale, and of course, as I said, LinkedIn. These tools are good to help you navigate sort of the landscape in terms of competing companies or pay, if you will, but your mileage may vary on that. I've done research on these tools for pay, and sometimes it's like all over the place. So don't look at these things and be like, okay, well, this is going to be the salary. You still need to do more research by way of networking, speaking to people you know, and getting information from actual humans as opposed to just going on like an Indeed or a PayScale or a salary.com. So these are part of your research, but not your total research. Also, make sure you're keeping an eye on your online brand, right? What are the things that you're putting out there in the universe? The digital footprint, it is a real thing. It never goes away. Once you put something out there, it's there for life. I always tell people, stay away from things that incite anger. So what are those things? Well, politics, sex, and religion. 15 minutes of time you'll never get back. These are arguments you're not going to win. And then that is 15 minutes of time that you could have spent writing a killer cover letter. If it is something that your grandmother would not appreciate seeing or reading about you, keep it offline. There is just no need. And employers do go there. They find you on Facebook. They find you on Instagram. They find you on LinkedIn. They find you on wherever. They find you if you're contributing on Clubhouse, although Clubhouse is a place where it's not, well, they can record, but generally it's not recorded, okay? But just be careful what you're putting out there. You want to present yourself as a professional, and especially if you're making a transition, it is critical that you keep yourself in check. You want to be seen as a professional, as a thought leader, and as someone who's going to add positive, sustained, long-term value. Put your best foot forward. Making your decision, it's going to take a while, I believe. It's not going to be a snap decision. You must exhibit patience. I can only speak for myself. I have no patience. I am the first to admit patience is a big zero over here. And I know a lot of people that are also very impatient. In fact, I've only met recently one person who I would genuinely say is patient. Most people have no patience. They readily admit they have no patience. Job search takes time. It is not something that happens overnight, generally. Can it? Sure, anything is possible. But generally it takes some time because you do need to take an approach where you're doing your research and you're taking good care to make smart decisions for yourself. It is absolutely a marathon. It is not a sprint. Don't be in too much of a hurry. That's where the mistakes are made. It is an investment in you, in your future happiness, your professional growth and development. So take the time, do the due diligence, and do what's best for you to make a smart decision. So some key points to remember. Research. I know you're shocked to hear that I would bring that up again, but it is really important to do that. Don't let the term loyalty get in your way. There's no such thing anymore. Actively networking is going to be your best friend. Use all of the tools that are available to you. You don't have to visit a formal library and dive into the card catalog. I know I'm dating myself. You don't need to do that anymore. Everything is at your fingertips. It's online, it's through your network, it's through people you know, and it's through getting greater introductions. Maybe you decided to join a networking group. There's tons of them out there, not just on LinkedIn. There are virtual networking groups, and I know that at least for me in my area, a lot of people are now starting to open up their networks and meet in person again. So there's that aspect if you feel comfortable. Don't forget to write a really solid cover letter, but most of all, and this is the most important thing, love yourself. Believe in yourself. If you want to make a transition, take the steps, build a plan, and make it happen. And it will happen. It is not a question of if it will happen. It is only a question of when. Thank you, Linda. My name is Deborah Wheatman. You can find me on the socials if you want to connect with me. I love to connect with people. I love to answer questions. And most importantly, I do love to connect people to other people. So if that helps you, I would be happy to do that.
Yeah, let me just say, Deb is the real deal. She is a phenomenal career navigator. She is an incredible career coach. And I can't recommend Deb enough in terms of being able to provide career services that help you with a pivot or a change or a redirection. She's really remarkable.